All right, Tov. So Boker Tov. We are resuming Masechet Beitzah, Daf Chaf Vav. We're on Amud Bet, and we're a little bit in the middle. Let's go back slightly. We won't do the whole thing again. Okay, we're dealing with the discussion of a Bechor. So we saw the machloket in the Mishnah between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon as to whether you can really go and you can check a Bechor on Yom Tov for Mumim at all. Now the Braita here added another layer to this, which is about there's another question here relating to Muktzah, and the truth is it was a bit confusing because the Mishnah is we have a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, right? Whereas Rabbi Yehuda is going to allow you to go the mumcha to go and check the mum, and Rabbi Shimon is not. And here in the Braita we have machloket a different Rabbi Yehuda and a different Rabbi Shimon. That's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh, which is not the same, as Rashi pointed out, not the same Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon as we saw in our Mishnah. Let's just read the Braita again quickly. So the bottom of Amud Aleph said, Tamnu Rabbanan, b'chol tam, shenafal lebol, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi omer, ילד מומחה ויראה אם יש פה מום יעלה וישחוט ואם לאו לא ישחוט. Right? So you have a bechor tam which fell into a bore. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says the mumcha can go and you can check, you can examine the mum, and right, yered mumcha v'yireh. Im yesh bo mum yaleh v'yishchot. If he finds has a mum kavua, then he can take it out and he can do the shchita. V'im lav lo yishchot. And if not, then he can't. Why does the Braita say again? Why does it say lo yishchot? It doesn't say lo yaleh. So either lo yishchot actually means lo yaleh we saw, or it means he's already taken it out, and even if he then does find a mum, we said that there's a knas min Rabbanan. Okay, so Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh, in other words, Rabbi Yehuda is saying you can't go. You're still going to have an issue here of muktzeh, right? You're not going to be able to go and take it out unless you know that there is a mum. But Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh says, didn't we say already that you can't examine mum on Yom Tov at all? Rabbi Shimon ben Manasseh, Harei Amru, Ein mum b'Yom Tov. Right? That was the opinion of Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. That's what he means. There's Harei Amru. They already said. So then we saw, he quotes you on the right, he said 3 cases. Right? Ketzad. Nolad bo mum me'elev Yom Tov, ein mevakin oto b'Yom Tov. Nolad bo mum b'Yom Tov, Rabbi Shimon omer ze muna mukhan, v'shavin she'im noladu v'mumo imo, sheze muna mukhan. Right? So those are 3 cases. Case number 1, we said, where it had a mum from Erev Yom Tov. So we said ein mevakrin oto. We explained ein mevakrin oto means lakatchila. But B'diavad is not such a great tikkun. Right? The whole reason here Rabbi Shimon says you cannot go and check the mum on Yom Tov is because that's going to be a tikkun for the animal, because now you can go and shecht it. So if it already had a mum on Erev Yom Tov, you just weren't sure. If that was a mum kavah, a mum aveh, you need to bring it to a mum to check. Right? So no, but mum Erev Yom Tov. We say ein vakin oto b'Yom Tov, and that's lekatchila. But B'diavad, if he did, it's okay, you can shecht it. Case number 2 was Nolad bo mum b'Yom Tov. And now I'm talking about bet. Nolad bo mum b'Yom Tov. Rabbi Shimon omer ein ze muna mukhan. Ein ze muna mukhan, meaning even b'diavad now, you would not be allowed to do anything with that. Okay, so if there was a mum on Yom Tov, says Rabbi Shimon, then you can't really check anything. And shavin she'im nolad hu v'mumo imo sheze muna mukhan. Okay, the only case where Rabbi Shimon would say, seems to be at this point, the katchila is the way that you can check it is if it's born with a mum. Okay, but here the question is, what he says over there, shavin ze she'im noladu v'mumo imo sheze min hamukhan, does that mean lakatchila or not? Certainly, b'diavad he would allow that, but it doesn't mean lakatchila the animal is born with a mum. Can you now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, of course you can, but according to Rabbi Shimon, is that going to be allowed? So Darash went on the 3rd line on Amud Bet, Daf Chafaf Amud Bet. 3rd line. Darash Rabba Balavuna Nolad hu v'mumo imo mevaklin oto b'Yom Tov lekatchila. So Rabba Balavuna says that if the animal is born with a mum, so mevaklin oto b'Yom Tov lekatchila, Lechatchila, you can go and you can check it on Yom Tov. Okay. So Amale Rav Nachman, Abba Tani im aval ubiklo muvukal. Rav Nachman says, yeah, again, Abba, yeah, literally means his father. Abba not means a Rav. It's a form of respect. It's a respectful way of speaking. But over here it says he's talking about his father himself. Right? Rashi points that out. Abba Tani says Alaviv Kama. Remember, on this Amud, you have Rashi on both sides of the page. No Tosfot, yes, you have Rashi on both sides of the Amud. So Abba Tani Amal. Slicha. If you went, right, what that language of im avar makes it sound like it's only b'diavad. Im avar b'kol mevukah. Zot omelet. סליחה. ואם עבר ובקום מבוקר, ואת אמרת, מבקרן אותו לכתחילה, you said you can go and check it לכתחילה, I'm saying no, you can only go and check בדיעבד. So אמר אביי, ודאי לא עבר לבונה מסתברא. So yeah, Abaye says it makes sense, I think that's what we got up to. It makes sense what Rabbi Avona is saying, that it's lekatchila. Why does that make sense? It makes sense because if you look at the Baraita, what we said, the Baraita was divided into 3 groups. It's divided into 3 groups. The first group is lekatchila no, but b'diavad yes. The second group is even b'diavad no, and the third group is even lekatchila yes. That makes sense why I have 3 groups. If I'm saying that it's lekatchila actually no, it's only b'diavad, so then it should go together in the first group. It doesn't make sense to split up the Braita in that way. Right, Amar Abaye, Kvat Hedra Baravona Mistabra. Midiktani Tlate Bava, Tlata Bave, since it's divided up into 3 different categories. Nolad Bo Mum Elav Yom Tov, Ein Mevalkin Oto Yom Tov, Lekatchila Udelo Adi Avad Shab Yodami. That was the first category. Right, if you had the mum on Erev Yom Tov, so you can't check it Lekatchila, but b'diavad it's okay. Nolad Mo Mum Be Yom Tov, Rabbi Shimon Omer Zemun Mukhan. Tafilu diavad nami lo. Okay. Category number 2 was that we said if the mum comes on Yom Tov, so then even there, even b'diavad we say no. V'hadatani, and then you go back and you teach v'shavin she'im nolad hu v'mumo imo shezeh v'namuchad tafilu lakatchila nami. Right there we say that even if it's one with its mum, then even lekatchila that would be okay. So that makes sense. That's divided into 3 to teach those lekatchila. Now the problem is that we're going to see that we have a bright that actually says the opposite. Right now we're trying to understand a bright that we said like this. According to Rabbi Shimon, we said that if it was nolad hu v'mumo imo, the bechor was born with a mum. So then, if the mumchen goes and checks it, then you're allowed to shecht it. It's not considered lo min hamuchan. It's not considered such a great tikkun that you wouldn't be allowed to. The question is, can you do it lekatchila or not? We saw an opinion that said yes. We saw an opinion that said no. Our proof from the Braita, from the diuk, from the language in the Braita, is that this would be allowed lekatchila as well. So now says the Gemara, wait a minute, not so fast. Okay, v'haki ata Rav Hoshaya, ata va'aiti matnita beyadeh. When Rav Hoshaya came, okay, he taught the following Braita. When he came from Eretz Yisrael to Bava, Rav Hoshaya taught the following Braita. Ben shenolad bo mum elav Yom Tov, uben shenolad bo mum b'Yom Tov, chachamim omim ein ze min hamuchan. Whether the mum was from Erev Yom Tov, or whether the mum was only on Yom Tov itself, Chachamim say this is not min hamuchan. Meaning, have a look at Rashi. He says afilu diavad, v'al Rabbi Shimoni d'shaminan le ein lo in mumin. In other words, when they say ein min hamuchan, that means to say that sounds like it's saying even b'diavad. And Rabbi Shimon is the one who says en roin mumin. In Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah. וכיוון דבנחתרת אלה ותני להו. So since it taught, again, our proof was that in our Braita we had three different categories. Here he's saying that you only have two different categories. I mean, the first two categories, again, we're not talking about Nolad Huvim or Moimor. We're not yet talking about the case where it was born with its mum. But you're talking about the case whether there was a mum on Erev Yom Tov or there was a mum in Yom Tov. And our Braita, we said that if the mum was from Erev Yom Tov, so then it's like Atchila no, but B'diavad yes. And if the mum was on Yom Tov, then it's even B'diavad no. So here he's teaching what? In this Braita, he's teaching whether the mum was on Erev Yom Tov or Yom Tov itself, that it's Asur B'diavad, according to Rabbi Shimon. So since that's already one category, so the Rashi says, since it's all those together, so Ikalamema, so you're going to say, what's the difference now with the new category, which is Nolad Huvim Moimor, it's born with a mum. So then you'll say the difference is there that it's allowed b'diavad, because for everything else we said it's not allowed b'diavad. Nadu Momo the Shalit Yavad Kamal Rav Nachman v'Kashe l'Abaye. So that is like Rav Nachman, and it's difficult for Abaye in terms of whether you can do it like a tchila or not. The Siyei l'Rab Baravona Meach. So that Braita seems to contradict the proof that Abaye just said from our Braita. So then we would seemingly say that you should not check it. So we said, והייתי מניתי בידי בין שנולד בו מום מערב יום טוב ובין שנולד בו מום ביום טוב, חכמים אומרים אין זה מוכן. Again, the proof over here, it's not a direct attack, but it's implied. Again, our proof was that in our Braita we have three categories, right? We're dealing with category number 3. We essentially said that if it splits up the Braita into 3, each one must be different. Each one must have its own unique halacha. So you wouldn't teach a third category if it didn't have anything unique to teach me. So category number 1 we said was like a tchila no, b'diavad yes. Category number 2 was b'diavad no. So now what are you going to say? If you're going to say that it's, well, we know is that it's b'diavad, it's allowed. So if you say it's lekatchila no, but b'diavad yes, it's the same as the first category. So there's two ways that we could challenge that. One way that we could challenge it is we could say the third category should not really be a category by itself. Or we could say, no, the third category is different. But actually, one of the previous categories was not quite what you thought. Right? What we thought that the first category means that it's going to know, but yes, actually we're saying no, the first one and the second one are really the same. Both of those are b'diavad no. So yeah, we're saying b'diavad yes, just not like a tchila. Right, so that was they we said manita be'adei ben shana bo mum el yom tov ben shana bo mum b'yom tov chachamei moment ze menu mochan ve'ela kasha hach hai ada bar uchmehi dimeshabesh v'tani. So what are we saying? We're saying erakasha hach, meaning the fact is that you have this Braita now. We have a contradiction between the two Braita. Now it doesn't make sense at all. I mean, if the second Braita was which Rav Oshaya brought, we said shows us actually that's a proof that what we're going to say that lekatchila you can't go and check the mumim. Okay, but what do we do with the first Braita that we started off with? There's no other way to explain that. Kasha hach. So the answer is Hai Ada bar Uchmehi. Okay. This Braita was taught by Ada bar Uchmei. Ada bar Uchmei is one of the Chachamim. Have a look here at Rashi. He says Ada bar Uchmehi Chacham Echad, it was one of the Chachamim. Shayu makirin bo shagores mishnayot u'meshacheach u'meshabshan. He would teach the mishnayot, right? But he would get them wrong. He would get them wrong. Essentially, again, remember, one of the difficulties of learning of learning a Gemara, of learning Torah Shabbal Peh, when it's written down, right? Is meant to be Torah Shabbal Peh. Okay, so we have it written down. So part of the we know the Gemara in Gittin that tells us that you are not allowed to write Dvarim Shabbal Peh, right? You're not allowed to write them down, and vice versa. But we did, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi eventually collected because Eit Lasod Lashem Efer Toratecha. If the Talmud had not been written down in some form, it would have been Chas v'Chalila, would have been lost forever. And therefore, you're allowed to write it down. But even when it was written down, it was done in such a way, we've discussed before, that it's a little bit cryptic and you have to understand, etc. But before they wrote down the Talmud, what did they have? So you had different Kvatim, you had different Mishnayot, and you had different Braitot. Okay, and you had different Chachamim who would know them and would learn them and would memorize them. And they would teach them. And not everybody's memory was as good as everybody else. And not everybody got the Mishnayot right. That's why we have a Braita, we have a Braita then. Sometimes we have things like, no, don't teach it like this, teach it like that. And we change the Girsa of the Mishnah, of the Braita, etc. So it says, Ada Bar Uchmei was one of the Chachamim who would learn the Mishnayot and the Braita, but he would get them wrong. He said he said this, he forgot. So it says, we always have to know exactly how authoritative our Braita are, especially if we have a contradiction between them. So he says, Adabar Uchmei, the Mishabesh Vatani, he would teach them in a way which is Meshubash. So don't worry, meaning the Braita which we have from Rabbi Oshaya, that is much more authoritative. And the one that we had, okay, so it was in 3 groups. Maybe you forgot, maybe you taught it the wrong way. It shouldn't have been in 3 groups, it should have been in 2 groups. But the bottom line is, therefore we say, that according to Rabbi Shimon, that lekatchila, you should not, even if it's not more, according to his opinion, you would not be able to check it lekatchila. Now, the Gemara is going to bring a further proof for this. It says not only that, it says Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak matnitin nami daika. We can bring a diuk from our Mishnah. Okay, we have 2 Braita which argue against each other, but we can. Well, they don't argue against each other, but they just the Girsot imply different things. But yeah, we can imply this from our Mishnah as well. How so? Manitin nami daika diktani Rabbi Shimon omer kol she'en mumo nikar me'erev Yom Tov. Okay, we say, according to Rabbi Shimon, any case where the mum is not recognized from Erev Yom Tov, Enze min hamuchan. So what does it mean, right? Ein mumo nikar. You don't recognize, right? My ein mumo nikar. What do we mean by that? Ilei mash ein mumo nikar klal pshita. If it means that, he says, wherever you haven't recognized, wherever you haven't seen the mum from before Yom Tov, we say Ein Zeh Min HaMuchan. So if it means that there was no mum at all before Yom Tov, well, that's obvious, right? That's clear. What's coming to teach you? So tzricha lemeimar ela delo itchazi lechacham erev Yom Tov. Rather, it means to say that you weren't able to show it to a chacham from before Yom Tov, and therefore there was a mum. You knew there was a mum, but it wasn't nikar, meaning you didn't know if it was a mum kavua or mum over. And lo itchazi lechacham erev Yom Tov, mum kavua and mum over. You weren't able to show it to chacham before Yom Tov to see if it was a mum kavua or mum over. So he says like this: Tani miat en ze min hamuchan. But nonetheless, we say that it's not min hamuchan. In other words, that's the same as Rav Oshaya's Braita. That we say ein ze min hamuchan means to say that even if a chacham looked at it, you're going to still say that it b'di'evid you're not allowed to shech the animal on Yom Tov. So that's whether the mum was on Yom Tov or whether the mum was not on Yom Tov. Okay, meaning whether the mum was on Yom Tov or whether the mum was from Erev Yom Tov. And therefore, if it was nolad uv more, you're going to say that's one step more lenient. What does one step more lenient therefore mean? Therefore means it's okay b'di'evid, but not that it's okay lechatchila. So that is going to be our conclusion according to Rabbi Shimon. Shma mina. Therefore, we say we can learn from here that is the diuk. Rashi points out. right? Ein Zeman Mukhan, Afilu Diavad, even B'diavad, Umeashta Kochach, V'shavin She'im Lo Lalu V'Momo Imo, She'Zeman Mukhan, B'diavad Kama. And therefore, when we say afterwards, Shavin She'im Lo Lalu V'Momo Imo, that it was born together with the mum, that means that Rabbi Shimon agrees to Rabbi Yehuda regarding what? He agrees regarding B'diavad, that it's okay, but not lekatchila. Okay, that takes us to the end of that sugya, more or less. Now we have a new question, which we'll just maybe mention today, and we'll continue discussing tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. So here we say like this: Ba'imine of Hillel min Rava. Yesh muktzeh lechatzi Shabbat or ein muktzeh lechatzi Shabbat. Okay, tangentially we've been discussing the idea of muktzeh. Now we're going to get into a little bit more detail, but a fascinating question, which is, do we have muktzeh for part of Shabbat? Again, what does muktzeh mean? Muktzeh means something is set aside. Set aside, and we've discussed before exactly how do we set it aside. Do we have to actively set it aside or actively not set it aside? But the point is, something that is set aside, you have no use for, you don't have any intention, whether that's subjective or objective, a different question, but whether one has no intention of using that object on Shabbat, therefore it is muktzeh. Muktzeh means that it is set aside. I always say it's quite ironic. We have certain terms that we use that's not actually their meaning. Most people think about muktzeh, they think about kli shemelachto le'isur, right? Which is, we discuss as one of the categories of things, but technically, strictly speaking, kli shemelachto le'isur is not actually muktzeh. And muktzeh means it's set aside. You can't use a kli shemelachto le'isur. You're allowed to move. You're allowed to move l'tzorach makomo. You're allowed to move l'tzorach gufo. Certain categories, but something which is completely muktzeh, you won't be allowed to move at all. So here's the case: if something is for part of Shabbat, it was right, I wouldn't be able to use. It wasn't fit for use. And therefore I say there was muktzeh for that time. Does that, and then through whatever change in the object, now I could use it the rest of Shabbat. But do I say that once it's muktzeh for part of Shabbat, it's going to be muktzeh for the whole Shabbat as well? That is the question. Right? Yesh muktzeh lechatzi Shabbat or ein muktzeh lechatzi Shabbat? Rashi says, yeah, yesh muktzeh lechatzi Shabbat, mishum chetzi Shabbat, im huktzeh b'chetzio, mi have muktzeh lekulei Shabbat im lo. Are we going to say that it's going to be muktzeh for the whole, for the rest of Shabbat as well? So at first, the Gemara says, I don't understand the question. It says, Echidami, either ichzi ben hashmashot, ichzi, either lo ichzi, lo ichzi. Okay. Generally speaking, we say bein hashmashot, when Shabbat's coming in, that's the time that's koveh. If it's fit for use in bein hashmashot, then it's fit for use on Shabbat. If it's not fit for use on bein hashmashot, it's not fit for use on Shabbat, then it would be muktzeh. Okay, what's the problem? So then the Gemara says, no, that's not the question. Lo, tzricha ichzi, v'hadal idchi, v'hadal ichzi. Meaning, the question is, it was fit at the beginning of Shabbat, but then it became unfit for use, and then it became fit for use again. So basically, at the time when it was a koveh, it should have been fine, but then afterwards you couldn't, and then can you use it again? That's going to be the question. That's what we're going to say. Do we say muktzeh lechatzi Shabbat or lo muktzeh lechatzi Shabbat? Okay, we'll stop there and we'll pick it up tomorrow. Have a great day.
Yeshikach, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.